Have you ever met someone who made the future feel obvious and terrifying at the same time? I'm not asking that casually. I mean, really felt it. Like your brain starts running simulations you never asked for. Like you're already imagining mornings that haven't happened yet, arguments you haven't had, kids who don't exist, but somehow feel real. Have you ever felt that kind of certainty collide with fear so hard it knocks the air out of you? Because that's where I am. And I'm talking to you because you're the only one who might understand without interrupting. I wasn't looking. That part matters. I never am. You know how it goes. Your life gets busy, complicated, loud. You convince yourself love is something you'll optimize later. Like a system update you keep postponing. You tell yourself you don't need it right now. And for a while, you actually believe that. Then she walked into my life without asking permission. It wasn't dramatic. No slow motion entrance, no cinematic music. Just a moment that didn't announce itself until it was already too late. Have you noticed how the most important things do that? They arrive quietly, and then suddenly they're everywhere. I remember the first conversation. I'm pretending to listen, but really I'm watching the way she thinks. The pauses, the questions she asks instead of the answers she gives. You ever meet someone who doesn't rush to impress you? Someone who feels grounded in a way that makes you slow down without trying? That was her. And the worst part, the best part, is that she saw me not the version people project onto. Not the ideas, the noise, the expectations. She saw the tired parts, the parts I don't usually offer, the parts I protect because once they're touched, they hurt. Do you know how rare that is? I kept telling myself it was coincidence, chemistry, a temporary alignment. I've told myself that story before, but this time it didn't stick because every time I walked away, I felt this quiet pull back. Not desperation, not obsession, something steadier, like gravity. You ever feel that? Like no matter how far you drift, something keeps pulling you into the same orbit. I started imagining a future without trying to. That scared me. I don't do that. I build things. I plan missions. I break impossible problems down into smaller ones. But this didn't want to be solved. It wanted to be felt. She felt like home. And I don't use that word lightly. I thought, this is it. I actually thought it. Clear as a line of code that finally runs without errors. I found my future wife. She's perfect. Perfect. Not because she's flawless, but because she fits the parts of me I don't talk about. So, what's the problem? You already know there's a problem. You can feel it. You wouldn't still be listening if there wasn't. The problem is what happens when love collides with reality, when something beautiful forces you to bring it into the world, where other people have opinions, fears, histories, especially family, especially my mother. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been afraid to tell your mother the truth? Not because you're ashamed, but because you know it will hurt her. Because you know she'll see danger where you see love. My mother has always been my shield, the kind of woman who reads the world for threats before they reach you. She's watched me build, fail, rebuild. She's seen what pressure does to a person. She doesn't trust easily. And when it comes to my heart, she's protective in a way that's almost primal. So every time I thought about telling her about you, about her, I felt this tension in my chest, not guilt, anticipation mixed with dread, because how do you explain something that makes sense only when you feel it? I imagined the conversation 100 times. Her eyes narrowing slightly, not in judgment, but concern. The question she wouldn't ask right away. The silence she uses when she's thinking 10 steps ahead of me. What do you really know about her? Is she ready for your life? Are you sure she loves you, not the chaos around you? You can hear it too, can't you? And here's the part I haven't said out loud yet, the part that keeps me awake. There is something she doesn't know, something about her, about us, something that could change everything the moment it's spoken. It's not scandal. It's not betrayal. It's something quieter. And that's what makes it dangerous. It's the kind of truth that doesn't explode. It erodesces slowly, carefully. I found myself delaying the introduction, making excuses, telling myself I needed more time. But really, I was afraid of the moment when my world would split into before and after. Before she knows, after she knows. Have you ever stood on that edge? Knowing that once you speak, there's no undo button. I look at her and I think, you're perfect. And then the other thought arrives, uninvited. But will you survive the truth? Because loving someone isn't just about choosing them. It's about choosing the consequences that come with them. The looks, the questions, the disappointment, the fear in your mother's voice when she realizes she can't protect you from this. I haven't told you the problem yet, not fully. You feel its shape, though. It's there, hovering between the lines. And right now, I'm standing in that moment before everything changes, wondering what you would do if you were me. Would you protect the love or protect the people who raised you? Would you stay silent a little longer or risk losing everything by telling the truth? I'm not ready to answer that yet. Are you ready to hear what happens next? Do you know that moment when silence starts to feel heavier than truth? That's where I found myself. Not in chaos, not in heartbreak yet, just pressure like the air before a storm. Every day I didn't speak, the weight grew. Every time my mother asked how my life was going, really asked, I felt the lie forming, not spoken, but implied. And you know this feeling, don't you? When you're not lying with words, but with a mission. When you realize silence can be just as loud. She could tell something was different. My mother always can. She watches patterns, not moments. She noticed I was distracted in a way that didn't come from work. That softer focus, the way your voice changes when your heart is elsewhere. You're thinking about someone, she said one evening. Not a question, a statement. I laughed it off. You know that laugh, the casual one, the engineered one. But inside something cracked because she was right and she deserved to know. So I decided to tell her, not everything yet, but enough. I told myself I'd ease her into it, introduce the idea gently, control the variables. That's how I approach everything else. Break the problem into smaller parts. Manage risk. Love doesn't care about your strategies. I remember the day clearly. The room felt smaller than usual. Light coming in through the window. Dust floating like it had nowhere urgent to be. She sat across from me, calm, attentive, ready. I've met someone, I said. The pause after that sentence stretched longer than it should have. She studied my face the way she did when I was younger, trying to figure out whether I was hurt, hiding something, or about to make a mistake. How serious? She asked that question. It cuts deeper than people realize, not who, not when, but how serious, because seriousness implies consequences. I think very serious. I didn't say perfect. I didn't say future wife. I didn't say love. I was testing the ground beneath my feet. She leaned back slightly, her expression softened, but only for a second. Then came the concern, the protective instinct rising like a shield. She's held up my entire life. Does she understand your life? Does she understand what it costs? Does she understand you? Each question landed carefully, like she was trying not to break something fragile. And here's the thing. I wanted to defend her. I wanted to say yes to everything without hesitation. But there was that problem again, that quiet truth sitting in my chest, refusing to stay buried, because she doesn't understand everything. Not yet. And neither does my mother. You ever notice how love puts you in the middle of two worlds, both pulling at you like gravity? One shaped by where you come from, the other by where you wanted to go. I told my mother about her kindness, her intelligence, the way she listens, the way she challenges me without trying to control me. I talked about how calm she makes me feel, how rare that is. My mother listened. She nodded. She smiled faintly. But then she asked the question I was dreading. What's her background? There it was. That word background can carry so much weight. Culture, history, family, expectations, things people pretend don't matter until they do. I answered carefully, too carefully, and I saw it. The shift in her eyes, not rejection, fear. The kind of fear that comes from experience, from knowing how unforgiving the world can be when two lives don't fit neatly into the same mold. She didn't say no. She didn't tell me to stop. She just went quiet, and that silence told me more than any argument could. She might be wonderful, my mother said slowly, but wonderful doesn't mean safe. Safe? Have you ever loved someone who didn't feel safe to the people who love you most? I felt defensive immediately, angry even. But underneath that anger was understanding. My mother wasn't wrong to worry. She's seen what happens when love becomes complicated by things you can't control, public pressure, cultural friction, expectations that suffocate instead of support. She's strong, I said. Stronger than you think. My mother looked at me then, not like a parent, but like someone seeing her child walk towards something she can't protect him from. I know you believe that, she said, but belief doesn't stop pain. That night, I went home and sat alone longer than usual. The house felt empty in a way it never had before. And for the first time, the question wasn't, do I love her? It was, can I ask her to carry this with me? Because the problem isn't just my mother, it's the collision of worlds, the scrutiny, the assumptions, the whispers, the pressure that will follow her just for choosing me. Have you ever realized that loving you means inheriting everything that comes with you? I hadn't told her yet about my mother's concerns, about the doubts forming around us like clouds. I didn't want to contaminate what we had with fear that might never come true. But fear has a way of seeping in anyway. She noticed I was quieter, that my eyes carried something heavier. One evening, she touched my hand and asked softly, "What aren't you telling me?" And that question terrified me more than my mother's doubts, because she deserves honesty. And honesty this time could break something. I realized then that the problem wasn't just external. It wasn't just family or background or expectations. The real problem was that loving her meant choosing her, even if it meant disappointing the woman who raised me. And I wasn't sure yet if I was brave enough to say that out loud. Do you see the trap now? Do you feel the tension tightening because the truth is about to surface, and once it does, nothing stays the same? What would you do if you were me? Tell her everything now or protect her from it a little longer. I stood on that edge knowing the next step would change all of us. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you started rehearsing their pain in your own head before it even happened? That's where I was when I finally decided to stop hiding. Not because I suddenly became brave, but because the silence was starting to poison everything. Love can survive a lot of things, distance, pressure, even fear. But it doesn't survive being kept in the dark. She was sitting across from me, legs tucked under her, pretending to focus on something trivial. But you know that look? The one where someone is present physically, but already bracing emotionally. She felt it coming before I said a word. "You've been somewhere else lately?" she said. "Not gone, just split." I didn't answer right away. I was watching her hands, calm on the surface, slight tension in the fingers. People reveal more than they think. "There's something I need to tell you," I said. "Those words are never neutral. They always arrive with consequences." She nodded. Didn't interrupt, didn't rush me. That's one of the things that made this harder. She gives space when things get heavy. Space invites honesty or cowardice. I chose honesty, or at least I tried. I told my mother about you. Her expression didn't change much at first, just a subtle tightening around the eyes, not fear, awareness. and she asked. I exhaled slowly. You'd think after everything I've built, everything I've risked, this would be easy. It wasn't. She's worried, I said. Not about who you are, about what loving me means. That landed, I could see it register. Not as an accusation, but as a weight. A familiar one, like she'd carried versions of it before. She thinks I come with too much, I added. She smiled then. Not happily, not bitterly, just knowingly. That's not new, she said quietly. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just my problem. This wasn't just my mother's fear. This was something she'd been preparing for long before she met me. Have you ever realized the person you love has already been wounded by the very thing you're afraid of becoming? I told her more about the questions, the concerns, the silence that followed. I didn't repeat everything word for word, but I didn't soften it either. She deserved the truth as it existed, not the version I wished for. She listened without interrupting, without defending herself. That hurt more than if she had argued. When I finished, she looked at me for a long moment. Then she asked the question I wasn't ready for. Is she right? I didn't answer immediately because that question isn't really about my mother. It's about me. Am I too much? Is my life too loud, too exposed, too unforgiving? Does loving me require sacrifices I'd never ask for, but would still demand? I don't know, I said honestly. That's what scares me. She nodded slowly, absorbing that. And then she said something that changed the entire shape of the room. My family asked the same questions about you. That caught me off guard. They worry I'll disappear into your world. She continued, that I'll become an accessory instead of a person, that I'll be expected to endure things instead of choosing them. Her voice was calm, but the words were sharp, precise, truthful. Do you feel that tension now? Two families standing on opposite sides of the same fear, both trying to protect, both unintentionally pulling us apart. I realized then that the problem wasn't just cultural or public or emotional. It was structural. Two lives built under very different assumptions, trying to merge without breaking. I don't want to lose myself, she said. And I don't want to lose you either. That sentence stayed with me because it contained the impossible equation we were trying to solve. I reached for her hand. She let me, but there was hesitation there now, not withdrawal, calculation. And then came the part I'd been avoiding, the part I hadn't even told my mother yet. There's something else, I said. Her eyes lifted to mine, immediately, alert, focused. There are expectations around me, I continued. Unspoken ones about how my life should look, who should be beside me, what kind of future is considered acceptable. I didn't say the words out loud. I didn't need to. She understood. So, I'll always be questioned, she said, not angrily, factually. Yes, and you? She asked. Well, you question me too when it gets hard. That question hit deeper than anything my mother had said because this time there was no one to blame but me. I wanted to promise her certainty, safety, clarity, but promises made without proof are just hope dressed up as confidence. I'm trying to choose you, I said. Even when it's uncomfortable, she searched my face, looking for cracks, for hesitation, for signs that I might flinch when pressure comes. Trying isn't the same as choosing, she said softly. And she was right. We sat there in that fragile, quiet, not broken, not whole, just suspended between love and reality. That night after she left, my phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Bring her to dinner, it read. I want to meet her. Relief and fear arrive at the same time. Because introductions are never just introductions. They're evaluations. They're moments where futures get silently approved or rejected. And I knew that this dinner would decide more than anyone was willing to admit. I looked at my phone, then at the empty room, and wondered if love can survive being examined so closely. What would you do now? Bring the two worlds together or keep delaying the collision? Because the moment they meet, there's no going back. And something tells me not everyone will walk away unchanged. Have you ever walked into a room knowing that everyone inside it is deciding the future without saying a word? That's what dinner felt like. I arrived early, of course I did. I always do when something matters. I checked details that didn't need checking, adjusted things that didn't matter. When you can't control the outcome, you start controlling the environment. It's a useless habit, but it keeps your hands busy while your mind spirals. My mother was calm, too calm. That kind of calm that isn't peace, it's preparation. When she arrived, everything slowed down. Not because she demanded attention, because she never does. She has that quiet presence that doesn't compete for space, it just occupies it. And I watched my mother notice that immediately. The first few minutes were polite, safe, names, compliments, neutral territory. You know the dance, everyone smiling, everyone holding back like a test run of something much bigger. I sat there barely speaking, watching every micro-expression. My mother's protective curiosity, her measured questions, her pauses, watching her listen not just to words, but to tone, to intention, and watching her, the woman I love, navigate it all with grace that came from strength, not performance. But grace doesn't cancel tension. It just makes it quieter. My mother asked about her family, her values, her plans, not interrogating, assessing, and I could feel the unspoken question beneath all of it. Are you prepared to survive my son's life? At one point, my mother asked, do you know what it's like to love someone who is never fully present because the world keeps pulling at him? The question wasn't hostile. It was almost gentle, but it cut. She answered without hesitation. I don't need him to be everywhere, she said. I need him to be honest about where he is. I felt that land hard because honesty is easy when things